through, and if you don't mind, if I can, if there's something that might need a bit of clarification, I might jump in. But other than that, it's over to you.
So today we're going to make a really easy no-knead focaccia, which in the end will result in a lovely loaf like this. Hopefully you can see it. What's really, really lovely is actually getting involved and getting your hands into the ingredients and getting to understand food for yourself. So using your senses, using, taste, touch, feel, smell, everything that you can get into learning how to cook is really, really important. So what I'm going to do is just put the yeast in here. So 7 grams or a quarter of an ounce. I'm going to put in, so this is actually an American recipe, so they use cups. Now I got these cups and these particular tools here from Amazon. I would highly recommend it because whenever anything has a cup, it's got a really precise measurement to it. Measure that in. Yeah. Also popping in here 2 teaspoons of honey. So yeast actually feeds off of sugar, so that's what helps to activate it. And one of the things that you're probably seeing maybe hopefully in my mobile view, is that there's already a little bit of foaming happening. There's a little bit of, it's going a little bit cloudy. So you can either give this a quick little stir and grab a balloon whisk.
Is it always honey, Sarah, or could you just use sugar? It's just honey's a more easily digestible source of sugar, is it? I don't know.
The honey actually really helps to improve both the taste and the colour, so it gives a bit more caramelised colour. There are some theories in terms of whether or not honey is sweeter than sugar, so whether it's the sucralose or fructose that comes from it. But in terms of the bake, I noticed that there's a much more pleasant flavour from honey compared to using sugar.
It's still warm, Sarah. Can you still feel the heat there?
Yeah, it's still warm. It's actually warmer than it went in. So that's the other thing that's really important to make sure that you're not doing is you can't use anything too hot because it will kill the yeast. So if you're not seeing any bubbles, you're not seeing any kind of milkiness, then that means that your yeast is dead. You're going to start all over again. And I'm actually a little bit obsessed with all things salt because it's really important to know what type of salt you're using. Diamond kosher salt is used because it's very fine, but it's not very salty, and I know that might sound a bit odd, but in terms of the size of the flakes, it actually impacts the saltiness of what you're eating.
Does the salt do it? Is it just flavour, or is it doing something else?
2 things. So one is flavour, and the other is it really helps to, it helps with the gluten, so it helps to make the gluten stronger.
Grace has asked about using smoked salt in this. Is that something that you've done or would try?
I think that would add a really nice touch on the top layer, which is what we're going to do at the end, but not whilst you're making the actual dough itself. And what happens is they start to form together when they're brought together with water and flour. And then as they start to work together in this particular rise, then they start to stretch. And then that yeast is helping to create those pockets of air. And then they can do that without yeast, but yeast helps to create even more air bubbles. If you overprove, then they'll snap and then it will fall in on itself. So that's why you want to do a second proof, making sure that you're actually tightening up that gluten strand so that when it stretches again, then it will actually hold better. It can be anything between an hour up to 4 hours until it doubles in size again. Unfortunately, I don't have a risen one to show you, but what I do have is a video that I can share with you where I've done this earlier today. And as you can see, it was a really wet dough, and this has a lot of elasticity and it's a lot of movement in it currently, and you can see it's really, really hydrated. So if I push an area without an oiled finger, you can see it's still really sticky. So it's going to be very nice and light and fluffy, but what I'm going to need to do is really oil up my fingers in order to dimple it in a moment. But what it is doing is it's starting to brown, and you pull it when you feel happy that it's brown enough. So I've actually done a couple of focaccias that have been darker in colour than this, but one of the things that I found is that I really like to toast it again and have it either as sandwich bread or as a side for meals as well.
Sarah, thanks very much. I think there's going to be a lot of baking going on, but thanks very much for your time. And within the playlist, there's all sorts of other bits in terms of recipes and tips and all that.